Hey y'all. All right, as you can see, we're back out in the garage, but looking at my D150, I have a subscriber, viewer, who has asked a question about how to make more performance with Magnum engines. He has a 99 Dodge Ram 3500 van. It has the V8 360 Magnum engine in it. So, this is a Magnum. It's a V6, but a lot of the same rules apply. Making power with this and then making power with the 360, a lot of the same ideas, a lot of the same stuff applies. It's not that different. Now, let me interrupt this though to bring you a commercial about the channel. Up over 3,400 subscribers now. It's like 3,415 or something like that, which is amazing. And I want to thank you all for that, but I also want to thank you all for the likes and the shares. It's really just really awesome. And I want to thank you also for the subscribes. Speaking of which, there are some of you though that aren't subscribed, and which is kind of amazing because this costs nothing. I'm giving you free information here, and all I'm asking is you just subscribe every once in a while. I mean, anyway, it's free. You get all of this information and get to see me bashing my knuckles into stuff, okay, and working on things. And hopefully you'll learn a thing or two about how to do this. So, now we got that out of the way, let's get back to making more power with a Magnum engine. Now, I've got to get my temperature gun, and then that will give you a better idea of what's going on here, okay? I'll be right back. Okay, so we're going to start off with something that's easy and simple and probably the least expensive thing, but also it's a very crucial element, is getting more air into the engine. Cooler air helps out even better. Now we're looking at the engine bay of my D150, and I know this is not a van, but that's okay because a lot of the same rules, or really all the same rules, apply. So what we've got here is this is the factory cold air snorkel. Now I got one of these that was a little bit longer and put it on here. And as you can see, this truck hasn't been started. We're at 76 degrees on the intake manifold. The exhaust manifolds are also 76 degrees. The reason I'm showing you all this is that cold air really is very beneficial to making power. Now, why is that? Well, simple as this. When you have cooler air getting into an engine, cooler air has more oxygen in it, okay? Oxygen molecules will swell as they get hotter, just like a lot of other things. So that's really important to remember. Now, so if you're getting cool air in there rather than hot under hood air, because you've got a lot of heat under here. You got the heat from the exhaust manifolds, you got a heat radiating from other parts of the engine. You've got also heat coming from the radiator itself that's blasting back on the engine and its intake manifold and its throttle body. So what's a good option here? What's a good way to keep your engine getting cool air? Well, you have these snorkels. Now this one is one I made completely here with some spare parts. Put it on, and there we go. Now these both work. show you here just in a second. As you can see, a little dirty there, a little dirty right there, but it is getting air rammed down in here. Now this filter assembly also has a spacer right there that jacks it up off of the throttle body. So that just helps me get a little bit straighter shot of air going down into the engine. Now, also I've got the K&N filter right there. So, and K&N filters, great investment because that one there is over 20 years old. And there's other brands other companies that make one similar to that. They work really well too, and they do an excellent job. All right, so you've seen this at the air temperature of the environment right now. It's 76 here, but the humidity is probably like in the 50% range or higher. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this son of a gun up. I'm going to let it idle for a while, and then we're going to check what the temperature is of the air intakes and also of the intake manifold. So we know it's about 70. It's making a liar out of me now. 74. Okay. And then what's 75. Okay. So roughly in that neighborhood right there. So I'm going to put this back on, and then we're going to take some temperatures after this thing has idled for a while, for maybe 15 minutes or so, and see what the temperatures are later. Of course, the temperatures are going to be higher, but this will give you a better idea. Now, a few words about intake manifolds, these beer barrel intake manifolds. They're great for lower end torque, higher end RPMs. I wouldn't, they're not really all that good for that. But there are companies that do port work on these, and I honestly would not bother with those unless you're talking about swapping out the heads. If you have heads that will flow a lot more air than stock, which Magnum heads are considerably better than previous heads. However, there are improvements over those as well. So when it comes right down to the real nitty-gritty, I would not spend my money on a bigger throttle body and a bigger intake manifold until you've got the airflow to handle it. And that means the heads. Or maybe an aftermarket cam, but then you're only going to get so far, because then the heads are going to become a cork if you go with all of this, ported intake and a bigger throttle body and a cam and all that sort of stuff. So, but adding a K&N style filter to the air cleaner on any vehicle is going to help the performance, because it's just going to allow more air to come in, make it easier. Now, also, I want to show you this here. This is your computer. This is on a 92. The later model computers are different looking, okay? But these, the earlier computers like this one, all you could do with them is get a piggyback that would go in, a piggyback chip that would go between the harness and the computer. And that would change things like, it would fool the computer into changing things like ignition timing and that sort of stuff. And maybe adding a little more fuel to make more power. So, let's start this thing up real quick. And I'll be right back. Well, I'll just, heck with it. You just come with me. at another example of all of this. Now this one is running behind the headlight assembly and getting its air from there, which you can see there's a big gap around the headlight assembly, and I seem to be missing a screw down there. That's wiggling. It's running. Oh well, I'll fix that later. Now on this one here, I'll show you this. I'll let you see what I'm talking about here for the V10. Now, I know that's a V6 and this is a V10, but they both have to have air, and they both like having more of it to make, which allows them to make more power. Now, another thing I wanted to mention about the computers on any of these trucks or any of these vans from these year models is that they need to see the cold air or any other changes like headers, cam, ported intake manifolds, anything like that. They need to see that for a longer period of time than just a brief day or so. They need to see this for maybe as much as a week before these changes become a little bit more ingrained into the computer, and the computer can recognize this is not just some fluke, but this is something that is going to be consistent and going on for a longer period of time, and that they can make adjustments to change with that. Now, however, keep in mind there's only so much room for any kind of changes that the computer can do. Okay? So that is something that's really important. Now, earlier today I was driving this one, so this engine is going to be a little bit hotter, a little bit warmer. But the cold air on this one, we've got the stock air box, we've got a paper filter in there instead of a can-in. Haven't got around to changing that out to a can-in yet, but we got just exhaust tubing coming from the corrugated pipe coming down here. Now, while there are a lot of people that will say that corrugated pipe will hurt flow, I don't think it hurts flow as much as they think it does, and I would rather have this than nothing at all. So yes, the corrugated pipe may hurt airflow a little bit, but here's one thing that it does very well, and that is shed the temperature and the heat from the engine. This engine is still pretty warm. I'm going to point this down to the cylinder head. The cylinder head right now is 111 degrees right now. So, and then let's see, this is now, I need better light out here. There we go. Let's see, take the temperature again, 103. Okay, so 101 down there. How much is it down here? Down there where it comes near to the bumper, 85 degrees. And as you can see right here, I've got the inlet right here, 82 degrees. So anyway, so yes, there's only so much adjustment a stock computer is going to be able to make, which kind of brings me to pretty much the next thing we're going to talk about, and that is a tuner. Now, let me grab something over here on the other side of the truck, and I will show you, or just give you a representation. I don't have any performance tuners here with me, but there is lots and lots of them on the market these days. They will probably look similar to this scanner right here. Okay, now your typical scanners like this one, you can hook up to most anything that has the OBD2 hookup like that. Okay, see, like that. Now, any of these scanners, you're going to be able to take them and change all kinds of parameters in the computer and make adjustments to ignition timing, air fuel ratios, all of these sort of things, and you'll be able to have the ignition timing ramp up faster, or even have it to where it ramps up at a greater degree. Comes up if like you're looking at a chart, a graph, and it would come up faster. Okay, this can be helpful in making power because it can take advantage of the cylinder heads or the camshaft or anything else that has been that's been changed, or sometimes not even changed at all, because sometimes some computers are programmed in such a way that they are programmed with lots of nannies in them. That's what I'm calling them, where that they won't allow enough ignition, that much ignition timing and that much fuel, to where it will make more power. So what I'm basically trying to tell you is that there's a lot of, you can make gains with a factory computer. Now, in the old days, also, a lot of other companies like General Motors and Ford, you could change a chip in your computer. That's not really that much of a thing anymore. Instead of changing a chip, you would use your tuner to come in, go into the computer, and change out parameters. Okay, change out the parameters in the computer, and flash a new code or a new parameter, or a new set of parameters into the computer. Now, believe it or not, when I was working on big rig diesel engines that were electronically controlled back in the 90s, you could actually change out that stuff in the 90s on a Caterpillar 3406E engine. So just a little show you how far some things have came, and how far some stuff has came in a shorter amount of time, really. But now, so when it comes to making more power, you got to get more air into the engine. You've got to have all of that stuff to where it's optimized to make more power. Okay, so what did I, oh, there's one. Okay, so we can see here everything right there. Oh, sorry, you were looking at me and I was looking at the engine. Anyway, okay, so what is our intake right now? 112. What is our air coming into the engine? What temperature is that? Well, that snorkel is still 81 degrees. This one is 83. So what's temperature registering on the dash? Okay, that's about a pretty good operating temperature right there. That's, when I drive this, that's about where the temperature gauge stays most all of the time. So that's about where it stays most all of the time. Yeah, I'm going to fix that rattle. Okay, so I finally figured out what it is. It's been bothering me forever. Anyway, so one of the things you want to keep in mind about modifying any of these Magnum engines is change out your plug wires. If you still got like the 7mm plug wires, they're not going to be too bad, but if you can step up to like an 8mm wire like these are just MSD street fire wires, that will help some. I mean, also, you've got a very high voltage ignition system on these. So, also too, another thing is, I don't know if you can see it back there, but there is the distributor cap back there, which is pretty hard to see. Anyway, if you can get one of those with brass contacts and the rotor button with brass contacts, that does help. And not only that, they last longer too. So, also, another little thing I'm just going to throw in here. This one has no mechanical fan. I have an electric fan. So this only gets used when the AC is on and when, yeah, the AC does work on this truck. So when the AC is on, this works, and also this only works when it's sitting still in traffic. Okay, it's sitting still. That's about the only times the fan comes on. Now I've got an automatic switch for it, but I've also got a manual override in the cab. So anyway, all right, so there's some stuff there for you. Okay, so cold air, all right, and we talked about these little modifications with the ignition wires and the distributor cap and the rotor button. Also the electric fan. Now, you may not want to do the electric fan, and if you don't, I completely understand. You might want to stick with the good old mechanical fan, which they do work exceptionally well. They're the, clutch fans. They operate thermostatically. However, there is a few other things you need to be aware of. Now, when it comes to manifolds or exhaust system, there is some ground to be gained there as well. Okay, so that ground is going to be, when it comes to exhaust systems, you're going to have to make some decisions. Do you want to stick with the stock manifolds? In '99, they would have had manifolds that would look very similar to this, although they were for V8. You know what? Wait a minute. I think I have some V8 manifolds here. I'll be right back. Okay, so here we got your regular run-of-the-mill Dodge Magnum exhaust manifold. Now, you can see right here, this is the back side of the manifold. This is the side that would face the engine. You can see that it gets larger right here. We have a pretty good sized tube coming from here, and it comes out and immediately turns down. You got to remember, manifolds are created in order to fit one engine into a lot of different chassis. If a manufacturer has to make a lot of different manifolds, then it costs them money. If they can make one manifold to fit a lot of different chassis, that's what they'll do. But I thought I'd give you a little rundown here of size. 1.668. Okay. 1.647. About the same there. And then this outside one, a little bit larger. Ooh, yeah, I don't like those numbers. Here, let's change that. Okay, that's better. But let's look at this 302 casting 318 head. So what do we got here for an exhaust port? 1.492. That was an outer one. This is like 1.6. Yeah. Ugh. Okay. So 1.664. And just for comparison, here's a 360 head over here. Now this is an LA head also, but let's look at this real quick. Now this is unported. 1.512, so a little bit bigger than the 318's head. Okay, so right around in that range there, 1.5. Now, I'm not measuring width here, even though that does play a big significant role. You can see right here, we do have some intrusions. However, you might want to be careful if you start grinding on these. Now, also too, I'm noticing that this isn't one big open chamber here. This goes in and has its own passage to about right here. This just comes down into here. That's why this is widened up right here. Back in the day when these first came out, or not long after they came out, Mopar Performance was saying, this is not a bad piece to use. They were saying stuff like, if you're hopping up, hot rodding a 318, a 360, a 340, anything like that, use a 340 manifold. If you can't get a hold of those, use these. Now, let me say something else. The Magnum manifolds come in two varieties. Okay, this one, let's measure the opening, outlet. I'm doing this one-handed, so. .88. Okay. Again, I'm doing it one-handed, so if my measurements aren't the same as yours, okay. However, now this is the later Magnum manifolds. Earlier ones, 92 and 93. This is supposed to be bigger. I think it's like 2 inches and something. So I don't have the measurements here with me right now, but anyway, yeah. Magnum manifolds, definitely a good way to go. You've already got them on that Ram, that van, 5.9, 360 engine. You've already got them on that, so, they'll probably be very similar to this right here. Like I said, though, the earlier Magnum manifolds can definitely help out. Now, so, we got that out of the way. The reason why is because some people really love manifolds because they're very trouble-free. You put them on, you bolt them on, and then that's pretty much it. You don't really have to worry about them or work with them much after that. Now, some of us, we like a little more trouble. And you can see this header right here you have one individual tube that runs all the way down there to a collector for each cylinder. Let me get this out of the way. There's the collector right over there. And so you got your collector right here. You have an individual tube that runs up here to cylinder 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Each cylinder has its own individual tube, its own individual pathway all the way down there to the collector. And that collector, promotes scavenging. All of this helps to promote scavenging and getting the exhaust gases out. Okay? Same with that, just on a not so much. This is doing the same thing as this, but this is doing it a hell of a lot better. Okay? So, this is more like, we're going to extremes here. Okay, so headers are like, we're optimizing things even more so than with a manifold. Okay, you see where I'm going with this? So, yeah, headers, better flow, more power, more torque, definitely helps out everywhere. And if you're thinking about headers, long tubes are the best way to go, but I've been looking and I cannot find long tube headers for 99 Dodge Ram vans. So you're pretty much kind of out in the cold there. However, I have found a couple of companies selling short tube, shorty headers. Those are pretty good. And again, would probably help out over this. Now this isn't bad, but they're, the shorty headers are a definite step up. And, they got individual runners for each individual cylinder. And this outlet would probably be bigger. The ones I've been looking at, they have this ball flange right here, which helps out with sealing as well. Okay. And another thing about the shorty headers, they'll bolt right up to your stock exhaust system, which that leads us right into exhaust systems. Now, exhaust systems, where should we go with that? Well, this, as you probably heard, has a pretty loud exhaust system. And you can see right here, Okay, not the prettiest exhaust system, but it's there. And you can see each bank has its own dedicated pipe that comes out in front of the rear wheels. I'll go over here and let you see. Yep, see? Yep, each pipe. There's no crossover there either, okay? So, that helps out with power as well. Now, like I was saying earlier, the changes that you make on these, you got to wait for the computer to come along and recognize it and say, hey, we've made some changes here, you need to catch up. And eventually the computer does. Now, but like I said again, I'm going to say this again, with regards to make sure you understand there's only so much adjustment there that a factory stock computer can do. And you need to really be thinking about what kind of, tuner you're going to be using. There's a lot of different ones out there. There's a lot of different companies. They start about like $375 and they go on up from there. Myself, I would probably pick a better one, maybe something kind of mid-range that would work with my computer, my vehicle, and would help out. Now, let's talk about the one last thing to help out. We want to talk about camshafts. These guys, okay? Now, camshafts are really, really super important. This is your brain for your engine, okay? You have to understand something really, really good about a camshaft. This is what tells the valve how much to open and how long to stay open, okay? So the width here is going to tell the valve how long to stay open. The width of this nose, okay, of this cam lobe. Now, also, something else here to remember. So that's your duration, okay? That's how long the valve is staying open. If we open a door up for a minute or so, maybe a minute, not very many people is going to come through. If we open a door and hold it open for maybe, let's say, 5 minutes, more people are going to come through. That's an exaggeration, but you get the point, okay? Now, the amount of time the valve is opened is expressed in degrees of crankshaft rotation, okay? This is usually measured at 50 thousandths inch of valve lift, because before then, nothing is really happening too much. There's not much going on there, okay? Now, lift is the amount here, how tall this is going to be. This is going to affect the amount the valve is open. Oh, my light there is telling me, hey, I need to be charged. Okay. Anyway, this is going to tell the valve how far to open. So the taller this is, the more the valve is going to be open. Okay. The more it's going to get opened. All right. So if this is 420 thousandths, which is not a lot, then 420 thousandths of lift, which is not a lot, that's pretty much like stock cam territory. This is a stock cam, by the way. Stock LA cam came out of that 360 right there on the stand. Anyway, so if we want to gain something here, we want this to be taller, okay? Now, we can have it taller by as much as just like maybe 10 thousandths of an, 10 thousandths of an inch. I mean, it's just not, just a little bit, and it can help tremendously because it's opening the valve that much longer, okay? So, if we open this longer, longer. It's getting really humid out here, y'all. Having a few difficulties. Anyway, if this is opened further, okay, then we're able to get more fuel and air coming through the cylinder head, okay? Because that we're able to harness more of the time that the piston is coming down through the bore. The piston is moving down through this bore, okay, or any one of these. And the more time it's moving down, the more time we can have the intake valve open, the more time, the more fuel and air we can shove in here through the cylinder head, okay? Because when the piston comes down, what does it do? It creates a vacuum, okay? It's not really that hard. So when it creates that vacuum going down, when it does that, then the piston is able to create, then it creates that vacuum. You got a lot of air and fuel coming in, and then when the piston comes back up, then we've got compression. Now, so we want to close the valves, all right? So we want to close the valves at compression. That means we want to have that intake valve and that exhaust valve closed at the same, not at the same time, but we both want both of them closed. Okay, we want them both closed so that you've got more time for this piston to come up. Now notice I'm saying time again, okay? So we got more time for this piston to come up and compress the mixture even more, okay? Now, so when we have that happening, then we have our exhaust. I'm just saying this is the exhaust lobe. It may not be. We're just doing this as a example, okay, to learn from. So when the exhaust valve, same thing as the intake valve, okay? So the exhaust valve is going to open. We want it to open more. So the valve is going to not only stay open longer, but it's going to open more, okay? So here we go. Be right back. Okay, y'all, I'm back. So I've got a couple of valves open here. So like I was saying, we want the valve, this is the intake valve. So we want the valve to open and then we want it to close. Okay? Now, more duration means more time the valve is open. Okay? Less duration means less time the valve is open. Okay? So more duration, more time the valve is open. More lift just simply means we're lifting the valve off the seat more. Okay? So like I was saying earlier, 420 thousandths of a lift, but let's say we don't want 420 thousandths. We want something like, let's say 500. So let's just say this is 420. Okay? But let's say this is 500. As you can see, we're gaining a lot more here. Now, duration, all right, real simple. We're going to expand on that. Duration, the amount of time the valve is open. So let's say your stock duration is something like, say, 180, okay? Or let's say 150, okay? So stock duration number is 150. So 150 at 50 thousandths of an inch valve lift. So we're there, let's say this is 150, okay? So we're gaining not very much there. But if we go and we have, let's say, 212 lift or 212 duration, 212 degrees of duration, that's duration of crankshaft rotation, okay? So I was looking around for a crankshaft in an engine. So let's say this, let me make some marks here real quick. Okay. Yeah, tire chalk, this will be perfect for what I'm doing. So let's just say here to here is 180, okay? So that's 180 degrees of crankshaft rotation. Now it isn't, and I know that, but this is a demonstration, okay? So don't give me hell over this. But let's say, hey, we want more, so we're going to go for 212. So there's 212, or maybe we want more than that. Let's say 220. So there's 220. You see where I'm going? You see what I'm talking about? So basically, everything I'm talking about here is optimizing all of the events that the engine is going through during its 4-stroke cycle. Okay, so now I would talk to you about overlap and that sort of thing, and that does play a very important role in what's going on here, but I feel like that may be for a separate video to discuss that even further and to gain more knowledge about that and to take better advantage of that. Okay, so anyway, this has been a really long video. There's so much ground to cover here, and there's a lot of stuff that I kind of skipped over that I can share with you if you want more information about this. But like I said earlier, go get yourself a scanner, not a scanner, get yourself a programmer, okay? Get yourself a power programmer that you can plug into your OBD2 port, and you can change some of the parameters in the computer, adjust your ignition timing, have it ramp up faster, maybe gain a little more time where the injector is open and injecting more fuel. Just changing that ignition timing, you're probably going to gain something right there, right off the bat. So, get the cold air in there, okay? Get the cold air in, not the hot under a hood air. Also, get the exhaust out, okay? Make it easier for that exhaust to flow on out of that engine, okay? No engine that's trying to make power wants to try and do that with tiny little exhaust pipes and stuff like that. Try to go with like at least a 2.5-inch system, okay? True dual exhaust. On vans, oh my God, you've got all kinds of room underneath there. Your gas tank's at the back, so you've got a lot of room for exhaust systems. A straight through muffler helps out tremendously. And if you're going to do that, try to use a resonator behind the exhaust, that muffler somewhere. Quietens down that exhaust a little bit. It's not so rattly and annoying for you. Because I'm assuming you still want to drive this thing everywhere, okay? Now, myself, I've covered a lot of miles with really loud exhaust in this truck right here. And I can tell you, it gets old after a while. So, anyway. So, yes, get the exhaust out, okay? Improve your ignition system, you know. I don't know that I would go so far with an MSD box or something like that, but if you can improve what you already have and optimize that and make it a little better, maybe get a little hotter coil maybe, that might be helpful. Wow. Okay, so thank you all. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you so much for all your likes and your shares and your subscribes. I really do thank you so much for all of that. I'm truly grateful, and I will never take that for granted. Thank you so much. You all have yourselves a great day. Any further questions, you know what to do. You're smart. Put it down in the comment section down below. I will do my best to get back to you as soon as humanly possible. Thank you.